And let's begin. Here we are. We are doing live at lunch Bible study. Let me let you know right now, this will probably be one of the last sessions that I'll be doing on a Wednesday, live at lunch on a Wednesday pretty soon. Um, but we will continue with our live at lunch Bible study on Sundays. So definitely check that out. We've been doing that lately as we go through our 30-day prayer journey. We're continuing, as I mentioned before, doing this 30-day prayer journey, and this has been pretty fruitful. I would say it's been pretty fruitful. We are into this prayer journey, and we're doing it throughout the month of June. And so, this prayer challenge that we got going on during June is going to be continue to be exciting and uplifting. And part of what we're doing here is continuing with the segment that I had promised to deliver on Bible study through what we do for Bible study help. And when we talk about Bible study help, let's be honest, Bible study help, we're looking to help people enhance their Bible study time, what they get out of the Bible study, what the Bible study does for them. So when you look at it, definitely look at what we're offering, what we're sharing, and what we're trying to do is help people get a better understanding of what they're doing with the scriptures. As it says, Psalm 119, verse 15, in the New Living Translation, it says, I will study your commandments and reflect on your ways. I'm trying to get an understanding for who God is. I'm trying to draw closer to who God is as I get to know him through his word. And so let's continue with this. And this is going to get into some Bible study, types of Bible study that beginners should consider, right? And I say this for beginners because a lot of times beginners will join a church, they'll come into the faith. That church may or may not have a new members program. That church may or may not have a small group Bible study or Sunday school that even works for that beginner's time, right? And so keep that in mind that this is something that you may utilize within a small group. You may utilize it within Sunday school. You may utilize it just for your personal study time. Um, you can't get enough Bible study. You can't get more than enough Bible study. So definitely look at this. So here we go. Boom. 4 types of Bible studies, right? And these are the ones that I would recommend for beginners. There are other types, but I would definitely recommend these for beginners. Uh, a topical study, a character study, a book of the Bible, and a section of the Bible, right? Those 4, I believe, are the key Bible study types that individuals can glean from, learn from, and get some of what they need out of a Bible study, especially in an individual or group setting. I say these work in an individual or group setting because you can feed off of the group or you can feed off of the other tools and resources that support your Bible study. Is it blogs, right? Um, you got blogs out there, you got podcasts, you've got YouTube, right? This is using YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. What are you using and how are you using it to enhance and enrich your understanding of the Bible, right? And so I know a lot happened during the pandemic where people started doing Bible study online. That's how this Bible study got started. But, that's one avenue. In person, also, makes a difference because you have the interaction and group dynamics in person that are a lot different than you have via Zoom or anything of that nature. So definitely look at these from the perspective of, if you're a beginner, how would you utilize these to help you develop and enrich your relationship with the Lord and your understanding of the Bible. So let's step on over here. Topical. When we talk about topical Bible studies, it's a study focused on a specific topic or theme found within the Bible. Here are four that, just stand out: faith, grace, salvation, the parables. These would primarily keep you in the New Testament, other than a couple of times where, for instance, uh, in Genesis, when Noah found, you know, grace, you know, from the Lord, right? If he found favor from the Lord, it all depends on what version of the Bible you're reading. And if you're reading the NIV and New Living Translation versus the New King James or the King James, you'll have a different rendering of that. But grace appears in the Old Testament, in the case of as early as Noah, as we see it. Faith appears in the Old Testament, maybe not in word, but in the acts of people. And so when we look at that and how the word is given to us in English, we have to be mindful. We're talking about two different languages. And so looking at these right here, I would say definitely this will be a good start for any new Christian person, new to the faith, just coming into the church, right? These are some things that would help you get rooted and grounded and further extend your time with the Lord in your personal Bible study time or in a group setting. Now, I wouldn't start with the topic of, for instance, eschatology, end of times. I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't start with the dietary laws found in the Old Testament, right? I wouldn't be like, okay, let's get Levitical on them. You know what I mean? I wouldn't start there. I would start with these four or similar topics that are broad enough to be covered in multiple sections, for instance, in the New Testament with grace. And then I would go ahead and build from there. The end times, the end of times, that kind of doomsday, day of the Lord, that's connected to, I say don't start there because that's connected to a lot of Old Testament prophecy as well, too, and Revelation. And so then you start getting into, okay, well, wait a minute. If this is the spoiler alert, then I don't know, right? You need the full scope and spectrum, and so that's why you're not going to get a full understanding of the Bible in one sitting. So I say don't start there. A little too heavy, right? Definitely look at faith, grace, salvation, and the parables. I would say that much. Then let's go to character. That's a study focused on a specific, profile of a person who appears in the Bible. David, Abraham, Joseph, Jeremiah. I say these are some prolific characters in the Bible that you definitely might want to check out. I'm going to share here in the comments, we did the Jeremiah journey, right? The Jeremiah journey was part of what we did. And, that was 2021, right? The Jeremiah journey. And that was something that we did here live at lunch. That was with Pastor Powell and myself. We went through Jeremiah for an entire year. Book of Jeremiah is 52 chapters. So we did a chapter week by week. And I think part of the other part that was inspiring about the Jeremiah journey was that it was, it was beyond the reading, right? Beyond the reading, we got into some things that were, the captivity of the people, the times where the prophet was trying to share and people just were like, we ain't trying to hear you, right? And so Jeremiah gives you a character picture of what's happening with a particular character as he's undergoing the challenges, for instance, in Jeremiah's case of being a prophet, in Joseph's case of being a dreamer who has visions and can interpret dreams, of Abraham of leaving his father's homeland and going into a place where God would show him, and how much faith it requires for Abraham to stay dedicated to this new relationship with God. David being the shepherd boy who now is destined to be king. What is it, right? And when we look at these characters can give us an indication of, where we can go. I wouldn't start with Moses, right? I definitely would not start with Moses, and sure wouldn't do Paul just yet. Paul and the missionary journeys. I wouldn't jump into that just yet. Definitely not looking at a character study of Jesus, right? You'll get a picture of Jesus in the Gospels if you study the Gospels. When we talk about the sections of the Bible later on, but definitely not like, okay, let me just jump into, a Jesus study. That may not be it. Okay, so character studies. Then you have books of the Bible, right? And they just focus on specific books of the Bible. Genesis, Psalms, Gospel of John, Proverbs. Right, I mentioned the Gospels earlier, and that was talking about instead of a character study of Jesus, read the Gospels. But here we go. Genesis. I did a series ages ago. I'll probably come back to it on my blog. It was from Eden to Egypt, and that actually covers the span of Genesis. And so Genesis, they start in the Garden of Eden, and Genesis ends with Joseph bringing his father and brothers to Egypt. And so when we look at Genesis, we're looking at the extent of what that is in the establishment of the faith, the establishment of this relationship with God and the presence of God, the power of God, the people of God. All that begins to take formation in Genesis. In the beginning was, the Word, which is John. That's in the Gospel of John, right? So then you look at that, you look at Genesis, right? You look at Proverbs, 31 chapters of Proverbs. That's 31 days in a month, right? You can do a study where you do a chapter a day, right? I did a chapter a day one summer of Proverbs. That was heavy study. And of course, you could do Psalms. Psalms is one of those books that can take you an extensive period of time to read, right? The book of Psalms can take an extensive period of time to read because then you get to Psalm 119, which is the longest psalm of the Bible, and boom, you are there for a period of time, which that, if I had to say, that could be a study in itself, Psalm 119, technically. Would I do that as a beginner? I don't know. I don't know if I'd do that, right? I would definitely not dive into New Testament epistles, right? Because the New Testament epistles are built upon what occurs in the Gospels, what occurs in Acts, and then also what occurred in the Old Testament. And so Paul, writing as a converted Pharisee, right? A converted, condemner of the church, a converted persecutor of the people of the way. Paul is writing from a perspective and sharing with a lot of connection to Old Testament prophecy and the mysteries of God that were unveiled through the Messiah, right? Remember Isaiah saying, I will do a new thing. And so I wouldn't dive into Paul's writing of the epistles just yet, nor Peter or Jude and James. I would steer away from that just yet and start with these, right? If I was a beginner and I had an opportunity to go into Bible study and start anew, I would definitely start with these as a potential for any of the books of the Bible, but not the New Testament epistles per se. Hope that helps. And finally, sections of the Bible. And so when I say sections of the Bible, I'm talking about major prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, major prophets like that. Minor prophets, okay? Believe it or not, Jonah, Zephaniah, the ones we don't talk about a lot, okay? We may hear about their story, but they're minor prophets, okay? And not in what they had to say, but in how they are categorized, in this whole theological structure. That's the only thing. They're not minor because of what they were talking about. In fact, if you read Joel and Zephaniah, you will hear plenty about the day of the Lord and the Lord sharing his spirit with the people. So that's not minor. Okay. Put it in perspective. Like I mentioned before, the wisdom books of the Bible, Psalms, Proverbs. I'd add Ecclesiastes. I wouldn't add Song of Solomon. I wouldn't add Song of Solomon just yet. Come back to that. That might not be where every new Christian needs to go, right? But as far as a study, you can begin to get it beyond an individual study, a family study. I would definitely use that in a small group or Sunday school, with some definite talking, questions, unpacking what that's about. So I would do the wisdom books, Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes without Song of Solomon. The Gospels plus the book of Acts. Remember, the book of Acts is written by Luke, right? It's a recording by Luke. And so when we get the beginning of Acts, it's almost like, okay, here goes part B of what I was talking about earlier, right? So I would put those together as a section of the Bible. And the law, Exodus through Deuteronomy. Why do I say Exodus? Because when we look at what would be considered from a Jewish perspective, the Torah, right? It would include Genesis, Exodus, through Deuteronomy, right? Not necessarily the books of the Kings or Chronicles, right? But those first 5 books. And I say the law utilizing Exodus because Exodus, as the beginning of the law, really setting the tone for here's a group of people who are linked to God by lineage. They're linked to God by lineage, by their ancestors. but they have no relationship with God. And so here is God reclaiming a group of people and establishing a relationship with them, right? And sharing what he expects of them, which is the law, right? And so when we get there, I wouldn't necessarily, if I was going to study the law, start with Genesis in the sense of the Torah, but I would start with Exodus in order to set the tone, and then the Levitical laws, Numbers, and the accounting of the people and their other actions and movements, and Deuteronomy. And you can begin to see the picture unfold. I said earlier not to jump into the character study of Moses, but Exodus through Deuteronomy would give you a pretty good picture of Moses. The other aspects of Moses, if you got into a study of Moses, would give you different parts of Hebrews chapter 11. It would give you different parts of the Gospel of John, right? It would give you different parts where Moses is referenced, not where Moses is present, right? So keep that in mind too. Even in Acts, when Stephen the martyr, the first Christian martyr, is being, stoned, he is making his profession before that about the testimony of the ancestors, and Moses appears in that testimony, just as Abraham, our father, appears in that testimony. So keep that in mind. This is how these are laid out. I would say, in summation, find where you are interested in going with your Bible study. And I guarantee you that your level of interest will send you other places. Your level of interest will send you other places. And it will definitely have you looking for other things within the Bible, right? Other things within other accounts or studies of the Word. It'll have you sitting there trying to check out different aspects of the Bible and other character connections. Once you start studying the Bible and you are looking in your Bible and you're making some references to, scriptures that are linked to what you are already studying, you'll begin to see some things and you'll say, well, wait a minute, this is part of, a chain reference. And I say definitely utilize that concordance, utilize those parallel Bibles online, utilize your tools, right? Utilize your tools for your Bible study. And I would definitely keep that in mind. We're talking about dictionaries, we're talking about lexicons, all that. I say utilize all that and put that into play. And I say that without question. These are some things that we definitely want you to use. I would say there's no substitute for a good solid study Bible. No substitute for a good solid study Bible. And I say that because I am one of those people that has multiple study Bibles, and I really think that those are good. And I think those are probably one of the most underutilized tools that we have at our disposal as Christian believers. And I think that we don't dive into them enough. I think we don't dive into them enough, and we don't utilize them enough in the full breadth of what they can offer. And as a beginner, um, I would definitely say check out some of what we have here from Bible Study Help. As a beginner, I would definitely jump up and check out um, some of this stuff that's available within a study Bible. And I say that because utilizing the study Bible, chain references, commentary, life application, study notes, concepts, and profiles, you can pretty much not go wrong by having a strong study Bible to utilize as one of your core tools to help you. And so, as a beginner, here you are. These are the things that I would consider topical, character, books of the Bible, and sections of the Bible. As a beginner, that's what I would say. Jump into that and start there. Utilize the Bible, and utilize it in a sense to where you can pick up on concepts, and get to know that these are the people of God and find out what God is expecting of the people of God. Hey, this has been Live at Lunch, working through this as part of Life Path Multimedia Ministries. And we're doing this in conjunction with Bible Study Help. I referenced a lot of what we have to offer through Bible Study Help in the comments. I appreciate your time. I thank you for joining us. I hope that you have a blessed day. God be with you. God bless you. Godspeed.